and welcome to my video focusing on narrative, specifically narrative theory and Todorov. So this is really useful for GCSE and A-level media studies, specifically AQA GCSE, but other syllabuses as well. Amongst other roles and contributions that he made to society, he was a structuralist, which means he was a narrative theorist, that's what we know him as now, and he was born in 1939. So from studying stories, he identified 5 stages in terms of narrative. Exposition, which is where the scene is set, including the time period, the setting, the characters and their lives and what their lives are like. Then second stage is disruption, so a problem occurs, disrupting the norm. And then a complication, so the characters or character recognises the problem and the situation gets a bit more complex and usually more characters get involved. So then things heat up and events happen to make it more dramatic, which is the climax. So things reach a peak basically, so it's the most dramatic point usually in the text, and if it's an action film, for example, that tends to be a big battle or a big chase scene. It might not be like that if it was a different genre. And then there's a resolution, which is the final stage, so life goes on but a bit differently. And the reason that it's quite commonly used is because it's quite safe. So, you know, it's safe and it's low risk. It still has the excitement, a sense of suspense for the audience, but they know that there's sort of a satisfying ending coming usually. And things are sort of wrapped up in a way that's enjoyable for the audience. So they know they're going to kind of go on a journey and things will change, but ultimately there'll be something at the end, a situation where things are sort of rectified basically, where there's the new equilibrium. So you can apply this theory to the Galaxy advert really well. So at the beginning there's an exposition where an Italian town is shown and Audrey Hepburn, the animated version of Audrey Hepburn, is shown travelling on a bus. And then it moves almost immediately, because remember it's only a 30-second advert, to the next stage, which is disruption, where there's a collision between the fruit cart and the bus. So basically the fruit sort of spilled everywhere, blocking the road, so the bus driver can't continue, the bus can't carry on going. And then there's a complication, so the fruit cart owner and the bus driver start arguing, and it becomes clear that Audrey Hepburn and the rest of the passengers on the bus aren't going to be going anywhere in a hurry. And Audrey realises she's stuck at the same time as a handsome car driver who looks like Gregory Peck, who was Audrey's co-star. He pulls up next to the bus and indicates that she should come and join him. And then the climax, it's not that dramatic because it is an advert and it's light-hearted in terms of its tone, but she leaves the bus, so it's the first time she's sort of taken that action, and then she takes the bus driver's hat and gives it to the car driver. So he looks slightly put out by that because obviously he thought that she was going to get into the front seat with him and, you know, that there would be, you know, maybe a romantic spark there, that she's putting him in the role of taxi driver instead. And then the resolution is that she's able to eat her chocolate bar, her Galaxy bar, in peace and savour the moment. We see her travelling into the distance along the Amalfi Coast, although we don't know where she ends up, so we're not showing her final destination. But yeah, ultimately that is the resolution. So it can also be applied to Doctor Who, An Unearthly Child, the close study product which is television, one of the television close study products. Because so at the beginning we've got exposition. The 2 teachers, Ian Chesterton and Barbara Wright, are discussing a student called Susan, who they both teach, and they both have concerns about her. So they decide to investigate because they're a bit suspicious about where she lives, because the place where she's given them doesn't seem to have proper houses. And also when she stays late after school, they offer her a lift but she doesn't want to go with them. She says she'd rather walk home even though it's dark already. So there are a few indications that are leading to suspicion in terms of the way that the teachers think of her. And then there's the disruption, because when they get there, they realise that things aren't right. So Ian declares that he thinks the police box is alive as it shakes. And there's a droning sound as well, leading the audience to think that something isn't right, like the characters, like the teachers think. And the noise increases as they enter the police box, which we now know as the TARDIS. And then the next stage, complication, is shown when it's revealed that the police box, which is, as I said, the TARDIS, enables the characters to travel through time and go to different time periods. And also it's revealed that Susan and her grandfather are from a different time period and are also a different species. So then there's a climax, because obviously the teachers have discovered this and Susan's grandfather isn't happy about it. So he's refusing to let them go, even though Susan's trying to persuade him. She repeatedly says, "Let them go." And then there's a struggle between the characters, which is the peak of the climax. Susan's grandfather presses a button on the machine, so starting the time travelling process. And then there's a zapping sound effect and a transition of the shot from the teachers to black and white lines and graphics across the screen, showing that things are changing and they're moving to a different time period. And then there isn't really a resolution, so that's quite interesting, and that's typical of TV programmes because the producers want the audience to watch the next episode. So it's left on a cliffhanger using the Enigma code, good term to use, and the teachers are unconscious, and the final scene shows a new setting, a barren landscape. As the audience know that they've moved to a different time period or a different setting, we're not sure which, but we know that they're no longer in the house anymore. And things, we don't know what's going to happen next. So it leaves the audience asking questions about what's going to happen next, where they are, whether they'll be okay, what they're going to do, whether they're going to be able to get back. So it's not resolved in the way that some media texts are, and in the way that Todorov noticed that a lot of texts were that he looked at, because, as I said, the producers want the audience to watch the next episode to find out the answers. So I hope this video was helpful. It might also be good to have a look at Prop's narrative theory. I've got a video on that because they work quite nicely together. Todorov looks more at the narrative structure, whereas Prop looks at different character types. So that one would be good to look at as well. Okay, take care.